Now, is there anything more annoying in the entire world than having a song stuck in your head? I've had. Do you know the song "Teenage Dirtbag" by Weedus?
Are you talking to
I've
me?
had. Yeah. Well, no, I'm talking to the fish.
Okay. We'll keep talking to
But
the
yes,
fish, not get any questions.
do you know this song?
Do I know the song?
Yeah.
Are
No.
you actually asking me, do I know the song?
Yeah. Do you know the song?
Yes, Cameron, I know the song. It was like a pop sensation song when I was a teenager.
Yes. Well, I've had that song stuck in my head for like 3 days, and I have some opinions. I
Could be
would not
worse.
describe it. I would not
You could
describe it as an enjoyable experience.
you could have Crazy Frog stuck in your head.
Oh, banger! That would be perfect. I want that stuck in my head.
I'm not sure about that.
But yeah. So, how's it going? You had any exciting stuff going on, fish related? Or I mean, doesn't have to be fish related, I suppose. But what have you been up to recently? Any breeding?
Uh,
Exciting spawning incidences?
no, most of my time's been focusing on setting up the next rack and tanks of aquariums at the moment.
Tell me about that.
Tell you all about it.
Please, and
I got a
listen.
few I got a few tanks. Maybe a little bit of dodgy stand action going on. A few dodgy tanks. The best sorts for a fish room. So I'm just in the process of setting that up, moving things around. Picked up some IBC totes the other day as well.
Nice.
So all things I go. So we'll see. Hopefully it's finished sometime this week. We'll see how we are.
And so, are these new tanks going to be spawning tanks, or are they like retail tanks, or what's
Spawning
the
and
plan for them?
spawning and growing out and holding tanks. So um,
Oh, nice.
the the retail side of the business is under control and it's not being increased, so to speak. And in-house quarantine, it's all kind of complete, other than a couple of little bit of maintenance I need to do. But it's the spawning and breeding side of things that are
Need
to
some
be
more room and all
expanded.
that.
Yeah,
That's the thing with breeding fish is it always needs more room than you think it does. Eh?
yeah,
You're always running out of tanks.
yeah. I've got room. I just don't have the glass boxes, so that's my issue there.
Oh, exactly. At least you got somewhere to start.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah. So I will just quickly address it. So anyone who's wondering where Ryan is, I don't remember his name, but if anyone remembers how
His
we got
name's
a visit,
Brian.
Brian. If anyone remembers Brian the bird,
Oh,
um,
Nigel. Nigel, no mates.
oh Nigel the bird,
I was
he
being
fi-
a smart ass and saying his name was Ryan. You know, like because we're missing
oh
Ryan, but you forgot his name.
see, I thought you said Brian, so I didn't even get that joke.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, the bird escaped. So apparently it's all under control, but he has to get it, sort that out. So he's a bit behind schedule. But if you're wondering where Ryan is, you'll have to put up with us two for 5 minutes until he gets back. We don't want to keep you from your lovely podcast, I guess. So I guess for me, I haven't had too much exciting stuff going on. What I've been doing heaps recently is working on heaps of ponds, and man, if you guys don't have a pond, you should really consider it. It's just so much fun. Like, it's so nice being outside, like with the good weather, like getting your feet wet, you know, digging a hole, all this kind of thing. So, if anyone listening is contemplating getting a pond, it's got my seal of approval. So,
do you actually dig holes? I don't think I can imagine seeing you on the end of a shovel.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't dug a hole yet. I've mostly been working on existing ponds. I did have to dig a hole that was like 10 centimeters deep the other day with a little trowel because
Get blood blisters on your hands.
uh yeah, man, it's all calloused over. But I had to take there's like on the pond filter there's like the little backflow thing, and it's got this little cap, and the cap had like no one had used it for ages, and like the soil had kind of like slid half over it, so I had to like dig a little hole so I could actually get to it. So I'm a tradie, physical labor. Yeah,
Absolutely,
man,
trading.
I love it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm not some sort of soft office guy anymore. I've
sure,
grown.
sure.
But
You
yeah.
know,
Oh
there he is.
look, wait. I'm gonna. Oh,
We'll
hey
take him off
Ryan.
there. Here you go.
Ryan's
Here you
back.
go. Here you
So
go.
I just recently learned how to. Okay, I don't actually know how to add him. Can you add it back, please? The only thing I can see is ban. But I've just recently learned that I can control the stream too, so it's exciting times.
Oh,
Do you catch the bird?
fucking bird.
Easier with fish, eh? At least they can't go far.
Oh, are you guys recording?
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
we're live.
Oh yeah, hey, how we going? So,
Do you need a minute just to get some zen going?
no, that's what I was doing. I was just like, what the hell? I've been up since 3. So,
Trying to find this bird.
well, they woke us up at 3, and then I was just stressing, and then I couldn't sleep because I was already awake. So I went outside a few times and was cruising around because then I could hear other birds calling and stuff, and I was like, he might wake up soon. Is he under the house? Has he gone here? Is he gone here? And I was just wandering around looking for this stupid fucking bird.
Yeah, well,
and where was it? Where did you
it's
find
another
it?
vote for fish.
Yeah, well, they'd gone for a walk, Kim and the kids, and I was just started from the source and was just looking around, and then other times she's lost them, not this bad, but he's been sleeping in her drawers, so I just checked her drawers again, even though I watched her check her drawers last night, and sure enough, third drawer down, he was happy as just sleeping on a pair of pants.
That's
The
good.
drawers closed, of course, but he was just having a snooze in there, didn't care.
They can get him from the back, I had that once. I had my cat get stuck in my drawers once because she climbed in through the back and then couldn't figure out how to get out because they
Oh
usually have an
yeah,
open
yeah.
thing on the back. So he
Now
probably
this
just was
one,
hanging out somewhere else.
he definitely went in the front because this one's all closed at the back, and
All right.
for whatever reason, the door got closed. I mean, the windows were open. For some reason, both the kids were still up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and went to the toilet together. Again, weird, but anyway, it's girls for you. And then they came back and he was gone, so they'd assumed he'd flown out the window, but he probably was just asleep in the drawer the whole bloody time. So
Sounds about right.
fun and games.
Well, we've got a couple comments that we will discuss with the lovely people. So Thomas was saying that he's got one of those preformed fiberglass ponds that he wants to put Corridora paleatus in, which do that. That sounds fantastic. You've still got heaps of time to do it for this season. We're talking about like summer tubbing, which we've talked about before. And I mean, it's a good time. Do it. You've got my vote. So
it's probably only just got warm enough in Auckland, especially. Hello, Kim.
I've had cherry barbs outside for like 2 months, and they're sweet as. But
Okay.
I probably wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, no, it's a good idea. You should do it, Tom. It's fun. What more could you want?
Yeah, my
And
big pool at the back sitting 22, 23 overnight now.
Has
So
it?
that's pretty
Is it
warm.
so you're
being?
putting fish in it soon?
That was my next question.
No, it's apparently it's going to be used this year.
Lame. Yeah, useful
Been used
fish.
twice so far.
Well,
See, what a humble guy.
Hours putting
What a humble
chemicals in
guy.
it, and
Got a fish tank, a big pond, and doesn't even use it.
I spent more hours putting chlorine in it and dipping it and playing with the filter and trying to get it crystal clear for its apparent use than it has been used. So
Sounds about right. And also, Amy says hello. So, good morning. Hope you're well. So yeah, cool. So we got another listener mail. This only came.
oh, no.
I only saw this like yesterday, and so we're on a roll. We've got 2 emails in 2 weeks. So anyone listening, hit us up. I did take the feedback that I need to get better at reading. So I'm gonna try harder, but
he went through a different education system to the rest of us. It was pretty much attendance based and Like
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if you win or lose, just participate and you'll be great. You know.
I'm also I'm just not the world's smartest fella. So this podcast is called Three Idiots Talk Aquariums, not three people who know how to read talk aquariums. So I'm gonna
I like that. I like that. Maybe we should rename it.
that's
not
our
bad.
that's our backup name if
Three
things go
idiots who
wrong.
talk shit and definitely don't know how to read. Talk about aquariums.
That's catchy. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna start with this email. So it comes from Andrew McGill, who I think Ryan
Oh
you know.
God. Yeah. It's one of my mates. Yeah.
Yep. So and he's it's actually I don't know if you can see, but it's pretty long. So
He's actually
put a lot of effort into it.
also, according to his wrap up of Spotify, that he is number one biggest fan of Aquarium. He's the most hours listened.
Well, I don't know if that's good or bad. I kind of feel sorry for him, but
I think he spends a lot of he lives very close to me, so he spends a lot of time driving to get to civilization. So it's probably all car time.
well, it still counts. I'm not going to complain.
Mm.
So yes, I'll start with this email from Andrew. He's prefaced this by saying he doesn't know if this will be good for this segment or if it's a bit long and going to need a episode in of itself. So I thought what we'll do is
I'm also concerned that the things that Andy knows about me, it's gonna be something that's bad about me. So I've got
I
a
don't
little
think
bit of
so.
concern right now. But anyway,
I don't think so. I think it'll be right. But yes, so well, I was going to say something, but I don't remember. So I'll just start. So he says, apart from obviously me and the other cam opening fish stores, which is kind of crazy, he said he wanted to know what is the biggest mission that we've done for fish or like related to fish. So he gave some examples of like massive road trips or hiking, trying to find specific bit of driftwood or something, or uh, mm, how do I say this politely? Idiots like us trying to do plumbing inside of our house for sumps, like this kind of thing. Like, what is the most like crazy, like absolute missions that we've done
or like
just
or
to
like
keep a
you're
fish
like
tank?
or you're like, oh, I might just clean my filter out at like 10 o'clock at night on it or something, and then like it starts leaking or something cracks
Yeah,
or breaks, and you end up just till like 5 o'clock the next morning, like just trying to fix it so your fish have somewhere to live, and there's water going everywhere, and it's like a
yeah.
disaster. Yeah.
So yeah, that is his first part, and then I'm gonna read the second part, and then we can go back and discuss them. The second question was who we've met in our fish keeping experiences that has stood out the most and why. Like, I think we all know fish people can be a bit
Awesome.
unique, so he just wants to know. He obviously, we may need to, make up some names or like be a bit vague about the specific people because we don't want to. If it's a story about how weird someone is or something, we won't do that.
I
Unless,
do
hey,
feel,
maybe they're
I
a
do
listener,
feel,
then
I do feel we could
fuck them.
prep for this and do a whole episode on it. I totally think I should. I could put some thought into this and almost fill up a whole episode with the crazy stuff I've done and seen.
All
And
right. Well, that's because you're
also,
old. You've seen a lot.
also there is a Guy Williams TV show that we could probably get some little snippets out of a 24-hour
You
guppy
want
breeder in Auckland. Remember that guy?
you wanna go that hard? Like, do a live reaction watch along party.
It'll be quite funny. People would just
All right.
crack up it. But yeah,
Well,
might be
do we
something
have
when I'm
any?
off work. We've got some time to do it.
Do we have any little tidbits for the listeners to feed them for this starting part, or we're just gonna leave the whole thing to a proper podcast episode?
I think we'll leave the whole thing to a proper podcast episode, and I can actually write some shit down
All right.
and
Sounds
go through
good.
some of
Well,
the crazy shit that I've done.
sounds good. So,
And you
Andrew,
guys have to do the same because you've probably had a lot of weird experiences too,
I probably don't want to talk about a lot of them because I feel
like
mean.
customers.
Yeah, but no, I've already got some ideas flowing, and some of them about people who won't care if I make jokes about them,
Yeah,
including
and you
both of
can
you
also
guys. So,
change the names and the situations. Like, it wasn't my store, but I was working in an aquatics store, and
yeah.
this guy walked in. It wasn't my store. I don't even know whose store it was. I forgot it
What even
now.
is a
But
store?
hypothetically speaking,
Yeah, I had a dream once that this situation happened to me.
and
So yeah,
Cam Nelson's even had some visitors into his store that he's had previous romantic encounters with and stuff, and he's
yeah,
told us
man.
about.
I mean,
So
it is Nelson. That's not a big.
things like
There's
that
a lot more chance. But...
can be recounted.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, what we'll do
So
is that's
is the other Cam, if you remember correctly. If you're going to throw me in it, you might as well throw him in it.
I don't want to talk about it. But let's
Yeah.
Oh,
how about for next week's episode, we're gonna have a laugh, shall we say? I feel like that'll be a lot of shit talking. So
Let's just
I look forward to
say
it.
I have been in at least 3 or 4, if not more, situations where I have had to text someone like, "This is where I am, and I'm going to go into this house and buy fish, but I don't know.
If I'm gonna come out.
Call the police if you don't hear from me in an hour," type situation. I've been in that situation quite a few times where I've been like,
Yeah,
I don't know if this
this
is
is
going to go
smart.
well. So yeah,
Oh, and you didn't die, so what's the worst that could happen?
no.
Exactly. So, yeah, well, we'll pencil that in for next week, next Wednesday, if you're listening. This is going to be the episode, and I think it'll be funny because we've got some funny stories. Ryan seems like he's got some funny stories. Cam's gonna talk about his ex-girlfriend / sister, so it's all it's all under control.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cam looks thoroughly impressed right now as well.
yeah, thanks, guys.
See,
He always looks.
I didn't know if I should make that joke or not, and then I was like, no, I
No,
will not. I will not be quiet.
yeah, it needs to be made.
Yeah,
Some things need to
exactly.
be said.
All right, so we'll move on, Andrew. We'll get onto that for you. And then if anyone else wants to participate in the listener mail / input section, you can email us at what is the email? podcast3idiots@gmail.com. Send it through. I do monitor it, but I'm not gonna lie,
Not
we
very
don't get
well.
very many emails, so there's not a lot to monitor. But if anyone has any input, I'm looking at you, Thomas. I'm expecting an email from you within the next week. So please, otherwise this segment's going to have some issues, shall we say? So please, we need you so bad. But yeah, and then while you're at it, subscribe to everything. That would really help us out. So I guess it becomes
It's random question time.
it becomes the random question segment. And so I did think about this for you guys. So if you could wave a magic wand and have
And
any
be any
job,
fish you want to be. Now we've done that one, and it sucked.
that was a banger. But if you could wave a magic wand and have any job in the world, what job would you have?
Then I got to say the first thing that popped into my mind, because it's not, it's definitely not PG rated.
Is it running a fish store? Because what more could you want?
No, it's not a job. It's something else. But anyway,
Well, we don't talk about it.
so what are we talking? Are we talking here like something that you would like do because you wanted to do it rather than earning money?
Just anything, like, or something you can't do because, like, I don't know, if you want to be an astronaut and you're not that smart, just whatever.
I think the three of us are probably fairly well aligned on this. But like, if it was never an issue of it, then like I'd want to be trying to help people and shit, because there's so much like kids and shit that can't get help and kill themselves, and so much suicide for adults and all that sort of shit. And the world's a pretty fucked up place, and it'd be hard to know. I wouldn't know how to do that, but it'd be cool to be able to help people and put supports
Then
in place for
that's
people
why with
to.
a magic wand you can just do
Yeah,
it.
so if I had a magic wand, that's what I'd want to do too, because you see so much shit stuff in the world and you just don't know how to fix it. So
Well,
that will be
that
me.
is very noble, and now it makes me feel bad for not having that as my answer. So
Way to
awkward.
make me feel bad for not using my social work degree. Good human, Ryan. Well done. Right
Thanks,
on.
Ryan.
No, but I mean,
Well,
like, or
No, I know.
driving race cars. Okay, I'll say driving race cars as well as a side as well. It's a
Okay.
two-tier job.
You can help people by driving race cars.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, what would you say, Cam?
I'd like to be a cricket player.
That was going to be one. So I had two answers, and that was going to be one of them. Would be a cricket player, and then the other one was going to be an astronaut because I reckon it'd be cool to go to outer space.
But that all
So,
happens
yeah.
in a TV studio. We know that it didn't happen. It's not real.
Yeah, but someone's got to do the acting for it.
If your talking's anything to go by, your acting's not going to be flash either.
Oh, that's so random. I don't remember asking your opinion. So we should move on, I guess. We would. So
What is the
the
topic?
main.
I wasn't even here.
I don't actually think I just decided it last night. So the topic
Okay.
we're going to talk about is actually something you'll know a lot about. Cam will know a bit about, and I know nothing about. So I'm just going to be asking questions this whole time, and that is we're going to be talking about like raising fish, like how to raise fish. So not necessarily like the breeding. This is kind of thinking once you've bred the fish, any fish, it doesn't matter really what. How do you go about raising them and growing them in a healthy way so that you can make sure you've got good quality stuff that you're trying to sell when they reach that point? So obviously for you it could be African cichlids, but for Cam it might be tetras or live bearers or some random thing like that. So I thought that would be good because breeding is one of those ones that like it's one of the most fun things you can do. Like everyone loves it.
Are you
Especially
still talking about fish here?
boy, settle down. But yeah, that was basically the main topic of today's video. So
Okay, that's a cool one. I like that one. I didn't think of that one. That's good.
yeah, well, I thought you'd know some stuff given your whole breeding operation you run. So yeah,
Yeah.
so what would you guys say would be the number one most important thing to consider when you're breeding fish? Like what is the thing that is the most important thing to consider, or the thing that a lot of people miss or get wrong or whatever? What is the thing
Having,
that's gonna make all the
having
difference?
having a male and a female fish will generally help.
To raise them, but you've already got them.
I'd
You
say
don't need a male and
raising.
female once you've got the babies.
Oh,
Do you
damn it.
listen when I talk about the topic?
No, actually, if you want the honest truth, I'm researching some stuff for you right now, so no, I'm not listening.
Fair enough.
My
I don't
bad.
blame you. So
The problem is with Cam Inbred is he doesn't listen, and then he gets to the end of the episode and he goes, "Oh, I didn't even really know what the
Okay,
topic
look,
was." Oh,
if you
to
want
be
the
fair,
honest,
Ryan, you've done the
if you
same
want,
thing multiple
if
times.
you want
So
the honest truth, I'm trying to cram my entire workday in before 9 o'clock today because I'm going to the cricket. So when you're
Yo.
just blah blah blah, that's all I can do some work here. So that's
Well,
what I'm doing. I'm sorry.
okay,
and you're supposed to be
so
participating.
we'll
Yeah.
get
It's your own
snappy.
task.
So
Okay.
assume you've got some fish. What do you
Alright.
need to think about?
Male and a female to start with. Oh, we've got fry.
Yes, we've already got fry.
What fry are we talking about?
Dealer's
You
choice.
can make it up.
changes
You can
everything.
make it up.
Oh, if you want African cichlids, just crush some flake in there and then walk away because they're ridiculously easy to bring up. Next.
So you're saying like feeding is the most important thing?
Well, you got to feed them or they'll die.
Ah, you're difficult, man.
With okay, so with my African cichlids, it depends on what sort of cichlid that I'm dealing with. I'll always start them off in something small, like a little hang-on tank or a real small tank, so that they can get food. Because when they're small, they don't tend to swim around and actually actively forage that well. They tend to just sit there. They swim around a little bit, but it's whatever's floating past their face they can eat. So, and I also find they go better if they can eat something that's wriggling. So I usually try microworms first or something like that. But they will eat just crushed up flake and stuff. Then as they get bigger, I just cycle them through bigger tank sizes. Feeding, I feed the same thing I feed my adults to my babies because, like Cam says, they're ridiculously easy. Unless they're something like an Alto or something like that is really, really hard to raise. Then you go through the live food thing.
Yep. No, that makes sense. So you'd say like feeding is one of the most important things to consider for raising
the
fry.
biggest problem that I have with raising fry is my tanks are not big enough. I need some IBCs, which I don't have, so they grow slowly. And
It's
also,
funny you had a big swimming pool readily accessible.
yes, we don't talk about the swimming pool. It's a sore point in this house.
Sorry, sir.
But anyway, and the biggest problem I have was, again, with lack of tanks and multiple species, is I end up mixing the wrong fish together.
And they fight with each other.
But one type tends to survive, the other 10 doesn't. The other type doesn't.
And that's how we get assorted mbuna.
Well, no, I only mix things that I know I can tell apart.
So you mean like an albino something and a blue something?
Well, I might,
so
if I had like, the problem is, like, you get like 20 electric yellows and 20 Demisoni, for example. You're like, oh, okay. But the problem is you don't get them at the same size and the same age and exactly the same time. So you're like, well, there's only 40 fish, so I don't want to dedicate, one whole tank to 20 yellows and one whole tank to 20 Demisoni. You put them all together, and then usually the biggest one out of those will do better than the other, and they'll kill off all the other fry. Same thing happens with peacock. Same thing happens with everything else. So,
how many times have you had that happen?
Multiple times.
And you haven't learned your lesson yet?
Well, I'm slowly learning my lesson about, well, all right, I put these and these together. It didn't work. What can I put together next time? Try that.
So you're learning your lesson now in the sense of what two species can cohabitate with each other, as opposed to still doing it, if that makes sense.
There's no option for me not to do it because I only have so many tanks and I'm trying to breed everything. But it's about a case of finding the best mix for everything. Things like lithomates and SB44, their fry are tiny.
Yeah.
They're like half the size of a peacock fry. So if I try and mix them with peacocks, they're stuffed.
Game over. Yeah.
But I can mix Taiwan Reef, lithos, and SB44 together, for example. So it's all about just figuring out what can go together. That's the biggest problem that I have in terms of mortality. And I guess I don't really operate it on a commercial production level, so I don't really know. There's probably better foods I could be feeding, higher in fats and all that sort of stuff to get better growth rates, feeding more often, feeding more brine shrimp, that sort of thing. But
who's got the time?
That's not your jam.
It's just, I'm just about producing the quality fish, not the fastest fish,
Yeah.
So that kind of, I guess, segues into what I was going to say for my thing that I think is one of the most important things to consider in the space, and that is like just time and like resources. Like I think a lot of people kind of think it's like the same as keeping a group of adults, if that makes sense. So like you just chuck them in a tank and do a water change every 2 weeks and feed them on the normal schedule. And I mean, for a lot of things that'll be fine, but there is a lot of things where like to really get the best results or like achieve what you're trying to do, you probably will need to do more water changes than that, or you'll need to be feeding more often than that to keep it going how you're trying to do it, if that makes sense.
Like if the fry are not getting fed much, there's going to be higher mortality between them because the bigger ones are going to predate on the smaller ones or just do better. And if you don't put enough food in, the smaller ones just aren't going to get any food. They're just not going to grow. The amount you're feeding them is actually very, very hard to judge, and I still struggle with that. And I'm feeding my fry more now than I was probably 6 months ago. Again, to try and make sure that everyone actually gets some bloody food.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can get away with that because you have your automatic system doing water change every day, but a lot of people don't have that. So I
Also,
find a lot of
Africans, I've
people.
got beer bottom tanks, I've got Africans, they tend to be quite good scavengers, so they do just pick away at stuff and eat it all. If you had
Yep.
something that was a little bit, like your tetras, for example, and you are overfeeding them, then food all sits on the bottom and they want it sort of in the water column or they're at the top or something, then you can run into issues real quickly.
Exactly. So I think that's something that a lot of people kind of have trouble with. And the thing is, a lot of people I see as well is like the idea is like the more you feed, the faster they'll grow, like that linear relationship. And I'm like, sure, but also the more you feed, the more you're going to have to do your maintenance because otherwise it'll just build up. And fry generally aren't as adept at dealing with particular issues as adults, and you can get yourself into trouble that way. So that is what I'd say is one of the most important things to remember is just it takes a lot more time than you'd probably expect at first glance.
A lot of fish do grow fast, and again, I try and feed a variety of different foods and quality foods rather than trying to pump out the fish as fast as you can, just to
Yeah.
try and get good color and natural growth rates and stuff. I read some articles recently where where
What?
they
I didn't
studied
know you know
the
how to
weight
read.
of maybe it was an audio book. Does that count? But
Nope.
anyway, where they had they'd done a study where again, it's all about farming fish, so it's about growing them as fast as possible. But they'd weighed the amount of the fish and then the amount of food they were putting in every day, and then studied how fast they were growing. And there was definitely a point where they were feeding more, the fish were eating it all, but they weren't growing as fast as they were beforehand. Now, I don't know if that was because they were eating so much, they were producing so much waste that was countering out the effects of the food, or if they were just eating so much that maybe they weren't swimming as much, or their body wasn't able to handle it, or they weren't able to metabolize it, or what it was. But yeah,
There was something
so
funky
so
going
many
on.
nutrients and vitamins and whatnot that they can take up as well. Like, at what point does, just use random vitamins, vitamin C max out because you need more vitamin A, for example, and not getting that one to make the other one work?
yeah, or they just feel flooded with fat, basically.
Yeah.
I'm
There's a
gonna
lot
go
of
with that's above my pay grade, but it sounds
mm,
it definitely does. It sounds logical at least, so that's a good start. So yeah,
Please move.
what? Yeah, I need to blow my nose. What would you? Oh, have you said anything yet, Cam, on about your favorite thing or most important thing? No, you haven't. You said you were just being annoying because you didn't know we were talking about.
I
So
was just
go
being
ahead.
in. I also find smaller containers to start with is the better option for fry. On the same theory, less room for them to have to swim to find stuff. It gets in their face faster, gets in their mouth faster, gets in their belly faster.
Get in my belly. But yeah, that
Uh,
makes sense. So are you talking? Would you say you'd prefer like those little breeder boxes, or are you just talking about like a littler tank?
I just use little containers, but I guess
Oh yeah,
essentially be very similar to a breeder box. It's
like
probably
an ice
only
cream
what
container type thing. You're thinking?
yeah, I probably use about a litres worth of water on the bottom of a container to hatch the eggs, and then leave the fry in there for about a week or so.
and you're
Got
not
enough
heating these containers, You're just relying on the
ambient
warm enough
temperature.
at the moment this time of year.
Yeah, I'll worry about that later on. And then micro worms is normally what I use to start with for the first few days. Then vinegar eels, and then move on from there.
Get bigger and bigger stuff.
Yeah.
You don't use brine,
Yeah, not in the first couple of days normally.
no, so you don't have that super. Because I know that lots of different theories and stuff about the size of brine shrimp, and you can get these ones from different species and different places that are smaller, and
Yeah.
that newborn fry can take them from day one. But I don't know exactly what that is.
No, I
It'll
tend
probably
to wait.
depend on the fry as well.
Yeah. Green water and infusoria is another one that gets on early days with the microworms as well. So,
And I have noticed anecdotally, I must say that
It's not how they used to pronounce that word, but yeah.
well, how do you say it then? Go.
You said anecdotally.
And well, how do you say it then?
Anecdotally.
Oh, there you go.
sounds like the same word to me.
Well, no one asked your opinion.
Also,
Lucky.
sorry, because I wasn't here at the beginning, I do need to ask everyone if they've done their daily practices of intentional guppy
Prayers.
reiteration into the mirror. So if everyone hasn't done it, you just need to close your eyes and look in the mirror every morning and say and put some intentional guppy energy and feng shui out into the universe and see if the intentional guppy karma comes back to you. Okay, that's very important.
Is there a chant that we have to slowly say, or how does this work? Like, do we just sit there and go,
and
intentional guppy in, intentional guppy out?
Yeah, it's something like that. But you could also, like, I believe the universe sort of works. You could, if you were doing other fish, you could use that as well. But you need to use that intentional thing in there, and it's very important. Okay.
So Amy, who was commenting
what I'm doing
before,
wrong.
came into the shop whatever day that was that we recorded that, and said that she fully understood what I meant and that you guys were just being dicks. So you
So
know,
Stop
proves
making,
there is.
take
stop
that
making
as you
up
may.
customers. Stop
But
making
at the
up
end of the
customers.
day, we just need to make sure that everyone in the fish keeping community is grounded and has their intentional guppy
Intentional guppy in.
practices intact. Okay.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, it's a important job.
yeah, breathe in the intentions of the guppy. Okay.
Guppy.
You right there?
There we go.
I'm ready. Yeah. Oh, cool.
All right.
Okay, good.
So
That's
now should we
actually
talk
what
about?
I needed. Why didn't we do this 35 minutes ago? I'm ready for this
Shall we
Because I
now.
talk
wasn't
about fish
here and I
tags?
had it already,
full
and then I got
zen.
flustered.
Yeah, I'm
Classic.
full zen. Let's do this.
So Helen reckons that the plastic tubs from the warehouse are a good option for what you were kind of talking about, Cam. Because especially because they have lids. So if you've got a cat or birds, be a bit more safe. The last thing you want is your fry to get eaten by something, obviously. So
I don't
Helen's
have
come in with a good suggestion. I think I'm going to try to put it on the thing. Oh, look at that. I put it on the screen.
How do you guys get to do that?
I don't know. I just logged in this morning and I had all these permissions where I can put stuff on. So
I
it's
can
lit.
present a slide. So
Yo.
and Thomas also says feeding too much food or the wrong type of food too early can be bad. Yeah, agreed.
Certainly. I think the general kind of thing with fry is they're just smaller, so you have less wiggle room. Like if the parameters go slightly wrong, they'll go make a problem before an adult would suffer from that, if that makes sense. So you do
Yeah, and
have to be a bit more careful, I think.
it's also harder to judge how much they're going to eat because, like,
Oh yeah, for sure.
most people, I'll probably say as a probably general statement, most people probably overfeed their fish anyway. So
It's probably
then you
a good
get fry.
chance.
If you start overfeeding them, you're just going to have dramas.
Yeah. So what would you say, like, obviously it's hard without knowing what exact type of fish we're talking about, but say we're trying to raise something easy like, cherry
Intentional
barbs
guppies.
or intentional guppies or yellows or, some sort of thing like Danios or something. What would you guys say would be like an general basic rule of thumb in terms of how much to feed and how often to feed this particular thing to be able to keep it happy, essentially, without going too far and creating a issue for yourself?
When I used to do altos, I used to deliberately put Malaysian trumpet snails in there to eat the leftover food as a matter of course, because they didn't actually eat the fry or the eggs. Was something that I learnt, but as a side note. But generally, when you're
Good
feeding
idea.
the fry, if you I usually just feed them some, like a little bit, what I think's a little bit, and then go away, and then come back in a couple of hours and see if it's all eaten and see if the fish are fat, basically, and just let them just do that. That's how I judge it.
So
Yeah.
just generally, the answer is, don't know, just wing it.
Well, and you can't really give a weight or a size or anything like that. I just look at it and be intentional guppy about it and go, right, that's about that much on my finger. Put it in there and then go back later and say, oh, there's still food everywhere. The fish are fat. They've eaten it all. That was obviously too much. Siphon that crap out. Next day, do a little bit less. Like it just, you can only judge it case by case, really.
With my intentional guppies, I just give a big container of, a little container of brine shrimp twice a day, but they're also in with their parents and stuff like that. So it's a bit harder to gauge on that as well.
Are intentional guppies that do swim with their parents, or do they have to be like intentional in another tank?
Well, I'm intentionally keeping them with their parents, so I'm assuming that still makes them intentional guppies.
But if you intend to keep a guppy, does that make every guppy an intentional guppy?
Well,
like if you bought with intent?
I've got assorted guppies which I intend to keep, but that doesn't make them intentional.
God, you guys are so annoying. Jesus.
I'm just. Owen's also said she has some unintentional diamond tetras. There you go. I don't do anything in 2 months, have 5 extras. They don't get fed, but must eat the copepods and live bugs in the algae.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. If you got plants, as I say, my African cichlid tanks with the plants in there, the fish just seem to do a little bit better. Like the ones that are just have a Java moss carpet about 10 centimeters thick across the whole tank. The fish are just sitting there munching away on that the whole time. So,
master plant grower Ryan. In full force.
You know me in plants. It's just
So a good one.
Just my thing.
I think that is a good little tip for people. Is I definitely do. I am a big believer of maybe not necessarily plants, but I'm really not a fan of like.
They are real. They do exist.
Bro, you really need to shut up while I'm talking.
Landing.
I can mute you. I'm pretty sure.
But
yeah, you probably can. You're still your head's still in the stars, mate. You're still an astronaut.
Yeah, man. But what I was gonna say is, what I'm a big fan of is like not raising fry and like those. You see it all the time, like real sterile tanks where it's like just a glass box, and then like maybe there's one rock in the middle and nothing else. Like I really think fry do so much better with a general like stuff for them to graze on, like Ryan said, like maybe Java moss, which catches all these little bits of stuff for them to like pick at. That's a really good idea.
An established sponge filter.
Yeah, like a gross sponge filter or a matten filter, or even just like a layer of like gravel or something. Just stuff going on. I think really gives them a lot more going on, which is I think a lot better for maybe not every fish in the world, but a lot of them.
I'm not entirely sure I can agree with that.
What? Why so?
Well, I'm assuming we were going to get to water cleanliness and all that kind of stuff very soon anyway.
Get to it now. You're the boss.
But you can have perfect water conditions and still have algae on your glass, and the fish can just munch away on the algae and whatever yummy stuff's hiding in it.
That's not what we're talking about.
Well, that's what he just said.
So what do you reckon, Ken?
I other than my intentional guppies, all of my stuff grows out in basically clear glass boxes with nothing in it. Gives me the ability to clean the mulm and the waste out significantly easier. And once they're running and established, they're a full on running system. So like I kind of think that defeats the ecosystem sort of theory on it, if that makes sense. Like when you're looking at properly producing numbers of fish as opposed to like unintentional diamond tetras that have been spawned into a community tank, which in that situation, like a fully established planted tank with all sorts of bits and pieces is absolutely perfect. But when you're like actively properly trying to produce the fish, I think it goes better the other way.
100%, you're never going to produce enough food in an environment like that. We can't replicate a natural environment unless you had like a gazillion litre tank, and with lots of fry. But definitely good to not have a sterile environment, I think, is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, I don't know.
A perfect sterile environment, I don't think works that well. Although for discus breeders, it seems to work, and they even PP in their tanks regularly to kill all the organic matter, don't they? So
I think it's pretty impossible to get a proper sterile environment. Like you've got water and live animals and stuff like that. So I know what you're talking about. We're trying to get you with sterile, but yeah, I think having that clean glass bottom, empty tank is a better option for growing out fry than the other way around for the best part.
In mass, I think I sort of agree with you. I still wouldn't go to the hassle of bloody just scrubbing everything pristine and crystal clear. I'd still leave all the algae there on the backs and stuff just because it's going to do more good than harm.
Yeah, but that's a little bit different scenario to what Cam was talking. At least the way that I've taken the way that Cam was talking about it anyway.
But putting some plants in there and stuff won't hurt.
From what I was gathering, Cam was talking about almost running a little mini setup as opposed to a raising or growing setup, if that makes sense. Like two kind of
I think
different
what I was trying to say is maybe halfway between both of you, like not quite like a fully display type aquascape, but equally not like just like a completely bare box. Like maybe having some gravel in it or some plants and stuff, just for them to have something to graze on and some hiding spaces and all this kind of thing. Was kind of what I was meaning. So yeah, that I guess.
And most people aren't going to be running a full-on commercial bloody system. You know what I mean? Like when you start raising a lot of fish, you have to kind of make it easy to maintain as well.
Funny that we can see him in the reflection and he's talking.
Can you see me?
Yeah, he's walked off.
We can see in the reflection. That's quite funny.
Oh, I just knocked the plant over.
No,
I'm just curious. Chloe's just mentioned I'm assuming she has fried tanks for guppies. Are these intentional guppies or unintentional guppies? Is all I need to know.
Bro, not everyone's going to know this joke. But yeah, it sounds like
will know
a cool
the joke
little
by the end of this.
I think that
sounds like a cool tank. I really like the tanks where there's like not that much plants on the bottom, but then it has heaps of floating plants, and it's like
most of our
the
listeners will know what an
thing.
unintentional guppy is. An intentional guppy, even though we don't really know, but that's all right.
All right, but yeah, I think that sounds like a cool little tank. But yeah, so
many scenes, GB, I totally agree. Longfin, white clouds are awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So what you kind of mentioned it before, like touched on it before, and that was like water conditions and that. So I don't know if you wanted to go a little bit deeper in that, but what do you think is the important things to consider when it comes to, water conditions and like parameters and maintenance routines and all this sort of side of things?
Depends on the fish.
Fair enough.
Some fish, like if they're real sensitive, like dwarf cichlids or something like that, then I probably wouldn't do a lot. You don't really want to disturb the water too much when they're younger, especially. So you want to make sure all the parameters are matched and stuff, and it's done really gently and easily. With my Africans, it doesn't matter. I just do my normal water change. My water change system does it for me, which is like 2.5% 4 times a day, gradually. So it's really easy.
I know you're a big fan of talking about stuff that can't be proven, Ryan. So what's your thoughts on hormones in the water and that type of stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there. The theory is that the biggest fish. The theory makes sense. The biggest fish, nature is about being the biggest fish and the most colourful fish and the fish that breeds. That's what nature is, right? So the biggest male, often the biggest, most colourful male, the biggest female, produce the most fry, ensure continuation of the species. That's pretty much what most animals, apart from humans, do in the world. And think about that's how they're wired. So the theory is that the biggest fish secretes a hormone that stunts the growth of any other fish in its sort of close proximity. So if you put them in a tank together, the biggest fish is secreting a hormone that stunts all the other fish. That's the theory. So theoretically, you dilute that by doing lots of water changes and keeping them in bigger tanks helps them all grow a bit faster.
The theory makes total sense. Whether or not it's true or not, I don't know.
The last time I went into Cam's shop, he did not have a hormone tester kit on the shelf, so
Not
I just
okay.
don't know how to test
Absolute asshole.
Yeah, useless. Get out of business.
that. So,
But yeah, I mean,
still
that
waiting
does
for
make
those
sense.
sponge
to me.
filters too. I'll add a hormone test kit to the sponge filters that he's going to get for me.
Bro, I have not bought sponge filters for like 3 months.
Filters as well.
Yeah, we're
Where are
both
my
still waiting
sponge
for sponge
filters?
filters. The fucking guy who gets sponge
What are
filters
you doing? It was like months ago.
Yeah, it's miles
Maybe
away. I
if-
have to go pick them
I
up. I
think
haven't
we
been
need
out
to
there.
put some sponge filter intentions out to the world, and then maybe they'll come to us.
I've
We
set
need
up
to
like
start
20
Being
tanks
a
since
bit
I-
nicer, and then maybe I'll consider it.
I've got your fucking Christmas present sitting in my garage. Both your Christmas presents sitting in my garage, actually. So I should
Yeah,
probably get them.
Christmas. I've
But
got a
yeah,
question-
so
I've got a question for Helen.
sure,
I'll bring
fire
up
away.
her point. So she said, successful ram breeder I follow on Instagram, actually IG, not Instagram. He has his peers in breeding tanks with gravel and some plants. He runs around 20 litre tanks with a pair in each tank. Does he leave the fry in there with them, or does he remove the fry and grow them out in a separate tank or a separate setup? Makes sense to have them in like the most natural, comforting environment to spawn from, particularly with dwarf cichlids. But what about the fry? Does he leave them in there with them, or grow them in a different point?
Good question.
That is a good question. I found the same with altos when you breed them. Like if you put them in their own tank, like a pair, you just basically will never see them. You know, and they come out sometimes and pick at food, but they don't even eat that well, and they don't even really seem that happy. But if you put some dither fish in there, you know, like I've bred them in a tank like this behind me, just put the pair in, put a shell in there, and they live in the shell. And then you see when the female goes skinny and disappears for a couple of days, you know, you got fry in there, pull the shell and the female out, you know, because they're more settled, they're eating better, they're happier with other fish around. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Helen said that they move, so they must spawn, and then she moves the remove the adults,
which is pretty much what you were saying.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's the best way to do it, because it's easier to catch 2 adults than it is to catch 300 microscopic fry.
Yep, for sure. But no, that makes sense. So, what would you guys say? So, like, for Matt says,
Fuck
"Good morning,
you,
gents, and Ryan."
What are you doing up this early when you're supposed to be at work? You're already on leave, you lazy person.
Seems to have touched a nerve for Ryan.
Also, thank you for the discount the other day I got on that plumbing stuff. Cheers.
So yeah, I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit, but with water changes in general, is there any, we discussed about like the hormones and that, but I mean, going even a little bit more basic, what else do we need to consider when determining how much we need to do and how frequent and all that?
Obviously, we want to keep ammonia and nitrite to 0. But fry, and particularly some sensitive ones, you want to be keeping the nitrates as low as absolute humanly possible as well.
Yep. Yeah. So
a lot of fry is sensitive to any sort of raise in nitrates, so it's worth keeping them down.
With fry, with fish, the general rule of thumb, like, you know, you go research it on the internet or something. The general
no
rule
one
of thumb
can really agree what the real nitrates level is.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say, the general rule of thumb you'll see is like below 40 parts million is kind of what people seems to be the consensus. But I mean, it's fine. But especially with raising fry, I find you'd want it to stay way lower than that to be able to get good growth.
I think we can all agree that
way,
ammonia and nitrates probably need to be just close to 0 as possible, right? I know ammonia should be 0, like, because the tank should be 0.
Ammonia and nitrite should be yellow and blue, and that's it.
Yeah. But keeping the nitrate as low as possible will, for fry especially, get you better growth in the more medium term, I think. you'd definitely be well served in trying to minimize it.
At some point, once I'm more comfortable with what I'm breeding and producing, I'd like to do a test on how fast nitrate spikes in a fry tank. Like, get a spawn of rainbow fish, for example, with a tank that's as low as possible nitrates, and then just leave them and just sort of test them every couple of days and see how long it takes for it to actually spike. I'd be quite curious to know how that works.
I'm also, I'm also interested in stuff like that, and also interested in what else is in the water that I can't measure or see that could be contributing to this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you start going, you get down a rabbit hole there, you figure out macro and micros and all that sort of stuff, and you're like, oh, okay.
And there's so much as hobbyists we just don't test.
I also don't know if jet fuel does melt steel beams.
You're the electrical engineer.
I've been soaked in jet fuel quite a few times. Definitely have to.
Recreationally?
Just making mistakes when I've been doing fuel drains on aircraft. But I haven't put it on a steel beam. But I don't think it melts the steel beam. So I think he's saying that nitrates don't kill fish.
So you're not a Terminator then?
Not a Terminator?
Well, if it melted steel beams, then you'd be melted. Because you'd be made of steel if you're the Terminator.
That joke's so funny when you have to explain it.
I
love it. I'm cracking up right now. But that is Braxton who said that, by the way. Braxton says nitrates kill fish just as well as jet fuel melts steel beams.
Okay.
We are not going to be discussing 9/11 conspiracies, probably. But
tune into our other podcast, 3 Idiots Talk Conspiracies.
Bro, that'd be funny as.
I'm going to get a tinfoil hat.
Yeah, man, you need it.
I keep it by the side of the bed.
Nice. So, what else? Is there anything else you guys would say you'd need to consider when it comes to raising fry?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a wee story.
What would that be?
About Jack and Diane. So I had a customer come in 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he works as a commercial fish breeder. And just as the conversation we were having, they were speaking about how they would feed some fish, and a whole bunch of fish either didn't grow or died. I can't quite remember which one it was now. And basically the supervisor of the plant said, check the expiry date of the food that you're feeding. I bet you it's either close to expired or expired. And it was, I think he said it was like a week away from expiration date. And so basically they theorized that fresh food is significantly better than close to expired or expired food for fish. Which goes against everything that I kind of thought and believed, that if it's sealed, it's kind of sweet.
Well, you guys have probably also done it often. Oh, damn, this food's expired on the shelf. Oh, I'll feed it to the fish in the shop. You know what I mean? I'm not going to throw it out.
I did stop doing that, but I have been very guilty of that in the past. After a while, I was like, this is probably not the best idea.
I think if it hasn't gone manky, the best thing to do with it is probably to pour it into a homemade frozen food.
Yeah, man. Well, I just, to be honest, I just feed it to the worms and then feed the worms to the fish. So it's close enough, but yeah.
I'm still quite adamant that if it hasn't been open and it's still sealed, it's okay.
It probably is, I'm sure, but I just didn't want to risk it, to be honest.
Like, I mean, I eat stuff that's past its use by date.
I always use the smell test, and if it doesn't smell funky and it hasn't gone all moldy, then you just use it. So it is. But
fair enough.
Even mold, it's not that bad.
But with what you were saying before, Cam, do you think maybe, like, this is not based on anything, just putting it out there. Do you think that's why a lot of breeders and that have much better results with live food? Just because obviously you can't get any fresher than live food?
No, I think it's probably more to do with the movement, triggers fish actually eating, and the size of it and all that kind of stuff.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting story. That's actually something I'm gonna see about.
Because like
when you say that, you're like, yeah, that would make a lot of sense, but you wouldn't think of it without hearing. So, and I mean, if professional fish breeders are discussing it and that, it's probably worth looking into for our mucking about at our house kind of
The
situation.
good,
So yeah,
the good thing for me, it's not an issue because I go through food so quickly; it never fucking expires. But
yeah,
for an average person, maybe it's an issue. I would think I've often found fish food gets manky and smells before when it goes bad, so you just throw it out.
yeah. Well, that's why you got to have a little worm farm so you can still use it to feed your fish, just in a different way.
Yeah, my worms get expired random stuff that the fish don't eat and stuff like that as well.
And your lunch,
No, they don't get that. I get my lunch.
lame.
Equally, we can do Ryan's trick and chuck it in the freezer as well. Once it's frozen, it's not going to get any worse.
Exactly.
I was thinking if it hadn't gone stinky and manky, you could easily use it as a binder for a frozen food and just blend it up with some other good stuff and sort of whatever is left in it would still spread out and go through there. But yeah,
Give
the
it a go.
nutrients definitely would probably drop off as things get older.
Yeah. So I have another thing that I guess is kind of related, but well, yeah, it's going to be related. So when you're breeding fish, what do you guys? So this is a topic that people aren't probably going to like, but it is one of those necessary things, and that is like quality control with the fish you're raising. So what is your guys' process with that? Like, obviously, I don't really breed that much, so my new fish process is slightly different. But what do you guys do to make sure that you're not putting out bad quality fish?
Well, you just keep an eye on what you're doing.
Regularly checking, yeah.
So what sort of
Checking the
things are you
fish.
checking for?
Any deformities is normally a thing. Any bent spines, any crooked looking things, any weird looking mouths, short gills, fins not being where fins should be.
Yeah. So just like physical kind of
Yeah.
issues in general.
If I'm breeding intentional guppies, anything that doesn't look like the parents then becomes an unintentional guppy, so I do something with them as well.
Yeah. Anything unintentional, if you will.
They become an assorted guppy.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
and then
unintentional guppy.
So this is the part that is not nice. But what do you do with those? You like say you're breeding some sort of cherry barb and you find 5 wonky spine ones that are no good. And you've caught them all out and you've got them sitting in a different tank. What do you do with them?
I'm a advocate for a blunt force trauma, so a real quick flick on the head.
So you're just you're putting them down, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just giving them a quick whack.
Yeah, quick flick on the head and down. If the fish get a little bit bigger, it's a bit different. But when they're small, you can flick them on the head. Even when they're really small, as grim as it sounds, sort of just squeezing between your fingers, it's instantaneous and it's job done.
Yeah. Is that a similar thing to what you do, Ryan?
Yep. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't like doing it. I've never enjoyed it, but
if you enjoy it, then you've got issues. Yeah, but it does need to get done.
It's one of those responsibilities of breeding. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The other thing that I do, and a lot of other people do as well, is feeding them to other fish, which I think you have to be a bit smart about, but is a good way of getting rid of them because then they're just gone. So you want to make sure it's like what I think at least is you want to make sure it's not like difficult, like it's a kind of thing that's gone and like it's
gone.
Gone in like instant in an instant, like a 1 centimeter fish getting fed to like a 10 centimeter fish is probably what you want to be doing.
Imagine parking a Ferrari in South Auckland with the keys in it. It's got to be gone that quick,
Bro.
If it's got to be chewed, it's too big to start with.
Yeah, it's you hate seeing it where people get like people put them in too big for a fish to get it down in one, and they kind of get ripped apart.
Yeah. Chloe's just
That's bloody
mentioned
horrible.
clove oil is a good way to do it as well.
Yeah, clove oil is a bit easier on you if you're not if you're a bit like squeamish, I guess is probably the best way to say it. Clove oil will be the easiest way.
I've used clove oil once because I wanted to say that I had and see what it was like. So I had a couple of mollies that needed to be dealt with. They were adult mollies. It took a horrendous amount of time. Like, it didn't seem to me the most logical way, and like, because it's an oil and the water, oil and water don't sort of work that well together, and I'm just guessing that the oil kind of coats the fish, its gills, and begins to get to the inside. And although it appeared to be very calming and easy, that the sheer time that it took, I thought was quite obscure. And I don't know if they're suffocating due to the oil getting through them and not able to get what they need to get, or if it shuts the brain down, or how that works. But just the sheer time of it, I thought didn't seem right as far as at least for me, in the way that I sort of said, if that makes sense.
So I've also only done clove oil once, and that was because I had like a dinner plate size silver dollar that someone was like $1 silver dollar that someone put it with a Texas, and then it got beaten to hell. And then I tried to save it for like probably like 3 weeks, and it was not making any improvement. Like, couldn't swim and stuff. I was like, oh, I got to deal with it. And then so I thought, because it's such a massive fish, I'm gonna try use clove oil, and it was bloody horrible. Like, some people have success, but I don't. I'm not. It's probably not something I'm going to use again myself.
I think I just googled it, and a lot of people are commenting at the same, saying that it's a natural anesthetic, and that's pretty much what Google says too. So it sounds like it does. You can actually buy anesthetics as well. I had a contact there for some stuff that you use to actually sedate fish for shipping that I was going to buy, and that's what you can use to anesthetize them as well. That's what the vets use.
It's not one that is. I'm gonna like. There's some sort of method that I'm gonna be like, definitely don't do that. That's no good. Like sometimes people just like
flushing out live down the toilet is not a good idea.
Like that. But don't do that. But like clove oil is like, it's fine. It's not for me. I'm not going to do it personally. But if that's the method you decide to go for, it's an acceptable method compared to a lot of others. But yeah,
I've used cloves to take away toothaches, which works relatively effectively. It numbed my mouth good. Matt also brought up that if you mix it first, it seems to work better, which I clearly didn't do. So it looks like I'm going to be using clove oil around to at some point.
The instructions say to mix it with warm water first, then add it to the water, and the dosage is critical.
What instructions on the bottle or on Google?
On the Googles.
I don't believe anything on Google.
That's how I did it as well, but it was still not still kind of sucked. It's just a bit grim. So
I will mix it next time, and I'll give you a full report of whatever fish that I'm culling.
And apparently you need.
They used to say to freeze them, but they don't do that anymore. Apparently that's really horrible. So don't do that.
It's like it's freezing a human. It's a pretty bloody rough way to die. But yeah, no, that's probably the other method. But I think definitely keeping an eye on your quality control is like probably I'm going to say the most important thing, because there is a lot of like, it's one of those ones where it's like no one
fish.
Exactly, and like no one's gonna. You shouldn't enjoy it, but it is one of those. It's kind of like your obligation if you are gonna go down the breeding route, you kind of have to.
And if you're getting a large number of culls and a large number of deformities, you've got to go back to what you're doing. Like, this isn't. We're making this into a big thing, but it's not that common.
Why don't you? I know you talk about it a lot, but I don't know if you've talked about it on the podcast. Like, why don't you talk about your white knight situation and what you do about that?
Oh, yeah, white knights are fucked.
Do you want to go in a bit more detail, or just leave it there?
So, you guys are store owners might be able to get hold of MS222. Tricane mesylate. There you go.
I did look into it once, and I couldn't find anywhere to get it.
Acquiesce, I think, was the other one that I've seen used. That's quite good. That's quite common, and you can get if you need to, easily. But probably for the average person, it's probably not needed in any quantity. But white knights, yes, the white knights are a extremely
Fish.
line-bred version of a Freyri. So the Freyri is
Which
a
is
blue
like an
fish.
electric blue.
Yeah, it's a bright blue fish, and the white knight is a bright white fish with like a platinum blue sort of thing. And they must be heavily inbred, because when I spawn them, I get probably 50% cows out of the spawn, at least 50%, if not more, probably 60%. So there's ones that can't swim. They're all bent, mangled, twisted, spinning around in circles. They're just deformities, cows from birth. You know. Now, if that was a pure strain or something like that I couldn't explain it, then I'd be very concerned. Obviously, it's concerning enough with the white knights to know that's. But I don't know what else you could do about it. The only thing you could do is breed it to normal Freyri and then line breed back a couple of generations and try and introduce some new genetics and see if that helped. But the remaining Freys are still have good vitality, and they're still strong and healthy. So,
have you spoken to other people that spawn them, and are they having the same thing? Like, is it saying potentially that one of your males or females is carrying, or is it like in that specific line, or is it saying that's known for that?
It's definitely common
variety
from the ones that I've talked to in New Zealand. But all the ones in New Zealand would have come from the same import at the same time. And I doubt anyone's ever going to bring them in again.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to any international breeders about it yet.
But yeah, so that's
that's something they're carrying somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
it could be. It could be a
still...
gene that they've got, or it could be a weakness they've got. They don't seem to be weak fish, but they definitely have a lot of deformities.
So that's something where you're still breeding them, obviously, but you just have to be a bit more careful with them than you would be for a bristle nose, for example.
And you also get a large number of normal coloured Freyri fry come out as well.
So like a bluish kind of one.
Well, they're brown when they're young.
Well, yeah, but grow up to be bluish.
I call them. Well, I don't actually keep them because they would look so close to a Freyri but not be a pure Freyri. So, what do you do with them? I can't sell them as a Freyri. Sell them as a hybrid, they end up looking kind of sort of like a Freyri, and then someone ends up breeding them. You know what I mean? Just not worth keeping.
Yeah, just too
70,
dangerous.
30,
I guess
70-30 fish. Just not. Well, I'm breeding proper Freyri, so I'll just breed them, sell them.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So.
But yeah, no, that sounds like it's definitely an interesting thing to think about, and I think it's something if you're breeding, you're kind of ethically obligated to consider, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about values and what you're into. But yes, I mean, to me, it seems like a very clear right and wrong way to do it. But
exactly,
other people have their own values and views. Who's to say who's right and who's wrong?
Yeah,
but sure. My thoughts are, if you're going to go to the hassle of breeding something, you may as well try and make it better than what it was or what you can already get. And there's no point breeding rubbish. Is my kind of what I've always thought.
For sure. Was there anything else you guys wanted to discuss on the subject?
No.
Water volume is always good as well.
Yeah, just to dilute any issues that might be arising from.
There's a reason. There's a reason why the commercial breeders overseas use IBCs.
Yeah, IBCs
or big ponds
proper
or
ponds.
big vats and that sort of stuff. It's just pure, volume, water volume.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
No, that makes sense. But yeah, no, I think this has been a very interesting episode. I hope our lovely listeners have enjoyed it. Please feel free to share it around. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbors, whoever. More listeners, the better.
We're also branching out into the holistic health realm with our intentional guppy manifestations. So
Yep.
there's a whole new stream of listeners right there. They're
Yeah.
going to start doing intentional guppy meditations. We'll be doing. That'll be our next thing. Intentional guppy guided meditation sessions run by Cam. So yeah, that's
Hey,
something
you
to look
can run it,
forward
man. This has nothing to do with me.
to.
I provided the subject matter. That's the important part.
Yes, the idea is sometimes more important than anything else, isn't it? So there you go.
Exactly. All right. Shall we scoop?
I'm not that lovely, but I'll take it. Thanks, Cam.
This is what Braxton says. He says, I'm not that lovely, but I'll take it. Thanks, Cam. Oh, holistic meditations. And I'm the what? And I'm the
And he's
tinfoil
the
hat guy.
tinfoil hat guy.
Yeah, you're still struggling to read it, mate. You're still
He
struggling
is.
to read it.
He
Bro,
is
I'm I have some other business I need to attend to urgently. It's making thinking hard, straight hard.
Is your toilet nitrate levels and ammonia levels going to go through the roof?
I expect so.
Probably needs to have a water change, does it?
Oh, definitely. But yeah, cool. All right.
Anyway,
let's
we
bitch up.
digress. Thanks for listening, and you make sure you get your orders in for the Christmas merch. You know, it'll be there before Christmas Day, guaranteed delivery before the 25th. If you get your order in today, you just got to pay express shipping, and Cam will just have to make it. So yeah, you might get something personalised.
Yep. And email in your bloody questions and stuff for the listener segment. And
yeah, bloody questions and stuff, you know.
We'll handle Andrew's topic suggestion next week.
Cool. And
Right.
yeah, make sure you do your daily intentional guppy meditations and practice that for next week's sessions. Okay.
All right. Good stuff.
Right.
See you later,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.
Goodbye. Do you want me to finish it?